Hi, I'm Eddie from Batson Enterprises. Today I'm going to be going over how to apply cold shrink on the foregrip of a rail rod. A couple things you're going to need. One is you're going to need your grip and reel seat already installed. Right here I have a RCTB 764X and we've got 14-inch rear grip on this. Typically that's what guys like to see on the rail rods. We have a size 24 reel seat already glued up, and then we're going to lay down some cork tape and the cold shrink for you here. The first thing you're going to need is we're going to need a piece of cold shrink, and this is a Batson PCS 50x457. Part number on that, it's just an 18-inch piece of cold shrink. You're going to need some type of tape, anything will work, measuring device, some type of marking tool, a pair of scissors or knife, and a roll of cork tape. You'll also need a couple hosels, depending on what size blank you're doing, and I'll go over why we need 2 of them here in a minute. So the first thing we need to do is to get our cork tape prepped, and basically all that entails is cutting the tape at an angle so it prepares us to lay it down smoothly against the blank here for our first run. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And you can see it's kind of an angle there. So I'm sure we'll time lapse this for the video, but we're just going to lay it down here. Nothing too fancy. Want to make sure that your backing is always coming off here. And you just kind of I kind of stick it down and then almost push it back into itself a little bit so that you don't get any gaps. We're going to do one more layer after this, so if you do have some gaps, you won't see them, but it's good not to have any. And the reason we really like to do them on the rail rods over the cork tape is because the cork tape is really hard and it makes for a better surface when the rod's actually being laid on the rail. All right, we're getting to my mark there where it's 18, and that's it. Now we're going to do another layer. And you can see why we're doing 2 layers there. It just matches the OD of our reel seat hood right there exactly. The cold shrink's going to add a little bit to it as well, and we'll get there in a little while. All right, same thing here. We're nearing the end. We'll be coming up on our 18 mark. Throw a piece of tape on it. Hold it down there, about it. And I just like to kind of push all these ends together and make sure everything looks real flat here. So before we put the cold shrink on here, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this. This is really tricky. You guys wanna be really careful, obviously, when you're doing this. I'm gonna cut it with a razor blade, and obviously we don't wanna go too deep, so very careful. Now that gives us a real nice square end. So this is where the 2 hosel method really comes in. If you can see, I have these 2 different sizes, and we're gonna put one on, and then the other one is gonna stretch around it once it's on there, and that's gonna help meet this diameter here of the cold shrink combined with the cork tape. So first we'll put the hosels on. Start with my small one. See that one there? It doesn't quite meet the OD. Now that second one just stretched right around the first one, and it gives us a really nice transition piece there from the blank to the foregrip. Okay, now the cold shrink, the fun part. You'll notice when you get these from us, they'll have a red arrow, and that indicates this is tucked inside there like this when you get it. So the arrow indicates which end we're going to pull this from. You don't want to start messing with this thing before you get it over the blank. If you start pulling this here, it starts taking it from this end very, very quickly. So you want to be sure you're ready to rock when you put this thing on. And here's how I do it. I'm just going to slip this down. And one thing worth noting too is these cold shrinks, they'll go to 18 inches and they'll go a little bit beyond too. If we measure this one, This one is right under 17 inches. So sometimes people will say they got one that's too short. As it collapses, it will start expanding too in length. So I'm gonna start the process of trying to put this on. I'm gonna overlap the edge of my cold shrink just a little bit onto the hood of my reel seat. I've got this positioned completely back here with my left hand. I'm gonna try and hold this stationary. It's a lot easier if you have two people, someone to hold the piece of cold shrink and the rod sometimes, but we're gonna try and do it here. One tip if you're doing it alone seems to be if I pull it and kind of give the piece of cord here a twist, and that starts it. You can see it's already started to collapse over the hood of my reel seat there, and that's quite a bit more than I'm wanting, but it's fine. At this point, I'll just pinch it with my fingers here and try to keep going. So again, I'm kind of grabbing it from the one side and then just pulling it around as I pull it out. All right, so you can see now we have this nice long 18-inch foregrip. Got our double hosels installed up here at the top to give it the nice transition. That's basically it on the install for a cold shrink on a rail rod. There's all kinds of things you can do to make your transition a little cleaner here. On this one you can see we went a little further over the reel seat than what's needed. I'll give this 24 hours. I might make a cut there to even it up and maybe put some thread or epoxy next to it. Some guys tuck it in. There's all kinds of ways to finish these edges off, and that's for you to decide. But that's basically it on installing a cold shrink foregrip on a rail rod. Thanks.